Okay everybody, so today what we're going to do is we're just going to spend the first few weeks looking at freehand sketching. So we did a lot of technical drawings last semester, orthographic projection, isometric projection and oblique. So we're going to do a bit more of that type of drawing later on and a bit more detail, the structural details, things like this. But first of all, one of the things we're going to look at is actually freehand sketching, which is very, very important. So if you're ever in a meeting with an engineer or a client, whatever it is, doing a quick freehand sketch is actually quite a useful way. So we did a lot of things last year with rulers and scale rulers. So now we're going to just spend the next few while just trying to do similar things, just freehand without rulers and without scale rulers. So we'll just go through a page so you can follow along. I've already drawn the title block, standard title block we did last year for all your drawings. Now a tip again, just to make sure the title block is nice and neat. I did it first of all in a very light pencil. So a light pencil would be something like 4H, 2H pencil, and then I went over it again in a darker pencil, which was a 5B pencil. So that, yeah, it's always good to go over your drawing at the end afterwards in a darker pencil, but always draw at the start in a lighter pencil. So if you want, pause the video here now and just get your title block in place. So again, same thing the whole way around, and your title block, we'll put in the text later on. So you can pause it now and then go and draw that, and then we're going to start the first thing, which is going to be drawing straight lines freehand. So I'm going to be using a H pencil, just so a bit lighter, and I'll go over it again at the end if we need to, if you can't see it. So if I want to draw a straight line, obviously I'm sitting right in front of my drawing here, so it's a bit awkward to hold the pencil in a straight line, and it's probably going to be a bit awkward to actually draw your straight line. So when you're drawing your straight line, one of the things you actually want to do, instead of kind of drawing with your wrist, what you want to do is you actually just use your arm, so kind of almost lock your elbow in place and actually just draw across, trying to keep your wrist straight. So in these situations you may have to actually turn your page a little bit. So I'll draw it here. So what I'm going to do is just going to draw a little line, little X here and a little X here. It doesn't matter actually about size, so we're going to draw a lot of stuff on this page here, so kind of roughly keep it in proportion what I'm doing. So again, I'll just get rid of this ruler while we're working. So instead of actually kind of drawing like kind of awkwardly straight like this, which is a bit unnatural, so our arm, by natural, if you just kind of go at an angle like this, it's much more fluid motion, so you can do a few practice strokes on a blank piece of paper. So but what we'll do here, nice and straight, just kind of draw a nice straight line. Okay, that's a bit dark. I'll go over it, I'll actually draw on a darker shade pencil, so I'll draw my 5B, but I recommend you guys draw on one of the H shade pencils, just so if you do make a mistake you can erase it. One of the things about freehand sketching, if you're drawing it and it doesn't look right, just get your eraser, rub it out and do it again. So, the stuff we're going to do here, I'm probably going to do it right the first time, maybe the second time. So, but if you're doing it and it's not looking right, just rub it out, keep rubbing it out and keep going over it again until you get it right. So it's a good thing about freehand sketching, especially if you're drawing a light pencil. So I'll just show you anyway. So this is a straight line. Yeah, it's relatively straight, bit of a curve there. Now one of the things actually, if you want to draw, a tip for drawing a straight line is, so if you draw a little X here, you have a little target here. So if I want to draw a straight line here, a lot of people kind of just think, right, when you want to draw a straight line, I'm going to put my pencil on the starting point, and you keep your eye on the nib of the pencil, you're going to follow it along and make it straight. But what happens is, more often than not, you'll actually find the pencil starts to go a bit sideways. So a trick when you want to draw a straight line between 2 points, if you put your pencil down the starting point and then keep your eye on the end point, it's much what you're generally, say, 7 times out of 10 you're going to have a straight line. So I'll try it in, hopefully it actually works this time. So you see, more or less gone through the X. So we'll do a little tight one in here in the middle again. So we'll do that again, just looking at the end line. So you see, I've got the paper turned sideways, so it's a bit more of a natural movement, so I'm not actually flicking my wrist, I'm actually just moving at the elbow. If you're drawing between 2 points, just keep your eye on the end point as you're drawing the pencil, and you'll find actually you're probably going to be a bit more accurate in hitting your straight line. So you can see the first one I did, I just kind of drew that without looking at the end line, and you see these two here now are actually a little bit better. That's because I was actually staring at these as I was drawing the line. So what we'll do is we'll just do a few different lines at different lengths. So I'll do another one here. So that was actually not the way I just told you, but sure, it's okay. And what we'll do now is we'll just do a few at different lengths. So even in the middle of these lines, I'll put my end point there, my starting point here. Okay. So you can just follow along, do something similar. We'll try some extra long lines. So the longer the lines are going to be, the harder it is to keep it straight. But again, a few little techniques. Just keep your elbow nice and fluid, and kind of keep an eye on your end point, and you'll find that you'll be able to hit the target a bit more often. So this is useful if you're going to be drawing things later on, like I'll show you, we're going to draw foundation things. So being able to draw relatively straight lines, you don't want your lines to be kind of going like that, because you know that just does not look nice and doesn't look messy at all. Or it looks too messy. So another thing to do as well, if you're going to draw vertical lines, so if you're going to do vertical, you can either twist the whole drawing board around, so you're actually drawing the vertical lines almost again with your elbow. Like I said, you're much better to draw straight lines if you just move your elbow instead of your wrist. So you can see here, just keep a bit of practice. The more often you practice, the better it'll get. So you'll develop a muscle memory, and eventually you'll be able to kind of draw straight lines fairly good. So again, if you've done this and your lines don't look straight, rub them out, do it again, just keep going over it. It'll only take a few minutes to kind of get the hang of it. Another thing, again, I was just talking about muscle memory there. So say if you've drawn one straight line and it actually was ridiculously straight, almost like you had a ruler, if you get your pencil, just kind of, without touching, just kind of mirror the movements over that line, and then go down here and you'll do it parallel underneath it again. It's just another thing that helps you make the lines a bit straight. So we'll try and draw then at an angle line. So if I've got my page like this, so I don't know if you saw in AutoCAD or when you're drawing some foundations and things like this, there's going to be a thing called a hatch. That's when you're actually colouring in things. So again, lots of hatches are actually just diagonal lines across other things. So we can draw some straight lines. Nice and easy. Again, I'm using my elbow to move it and not my wrist, so it's nice and straight. So you see all these lines, when I'm actually not drawing anything here, all I'm doing is actually just practicing the hand drawing, but you can see most of the lines are actually fairly straight, and if you're doing these as a freehand sketch and you're getting something about this straight, you know, that'd be more than acceptable. So that'll be number one. I'm just going to write number one here. So that was lines. Again, you can just write that freehand, whatever, it's okay. We're going to do a little bit of text practice later on, but these are just kind of to keep track of what we're actually drawing. So the next thing we're going to do is we go to number two. So we have our lines here. So the next thing we're going to do is actually just draw in shapes. One of the things if you draw in a shape freehand is there's a few different techniques you can do, especially a square. So we know how to draw a straight line now. So if we want to draw a square, we'd obviously go that down, and across like this. For freehand sketching, I don't know, you might notice actually when you see any architectural programs, a lot of the architects actually when they're drawing lines, they actually kind of cross over the lines. So for freehand sketching, you don't have to be absolutely perfect. It doesn't have to be nice and neat. Well, it has to be nice and neat, but it doesn't have to be perfectly straight. And sometimes when the lines actually cross like that, it looks a little bit better. So I'll show you an example. I'm going to draw a little square here. I'm going to draw 3 squares, going to do them freehand. So that's our first line here. I'll draw the bottom line. So I have to twist it around. And we go around like this. So as I was saying, kind of instead of actually just going across the line, instead of actually going from the end of the line, you can actually just go in a little bit and have the lines crossing over a small bit. So see, we have a sketch. Okay, that's probably a little bit too big, but you kind of get the idea. So we'll just do another one. Again, when you're doing freehand sketching, just make sure you kind of turn the page. It's a lot easier just to keep the page turned instead of actually trying to twist your body in an awkward angle. And then we'll just do a little one, another small one, kind of just at a slightly different size. So you see this little, where the lines kind of overtake like this, just makes things look a little easier. It makes the edges kind of a bit more obvious. So it's a technique that's kind of used in architecture and engineering sketching. So what we'll do again is now we'll draw another few squares here. What we can do, actually we can use these squares again. So we can use brush strokes. So okay, number 3 is going to be brush strokes, what we're going to do. So this is where you get your pencil. Again, a lot of people have done art, probably familiar with this. Again, in engineering, with freehand sketching, we're not looking to create an absolute work of art. What we're trying to do is actually communicate ideas. So if we're in a site and there's an issue with a foundation, you want to be able to draw a foundation, relatively straight, so you're going to have lots of straight lines. And then just to help differentiate the different materials like concrete, timber and wood, you can actually start adding in shading or hatching just to improve that. So there's different ways you can do shading. Again, one of the simple ways is actually just draw lots of little straight lines. So if you want to start off in a darker end, you kind of put the lines nice and close together. Then as you get further away, you can just start spreading them out. Again, you can use your hand to kind of keep so you don't go over the lines too much. So you can see here it's been a bit dark here, you can kind of go over it again. And then it gets lighter as you're going along, so you know, that's just kind of adds a bit more detail. Another one what you can do is again just using the side of your pencil. And again, kind of move the page just so it's comfortable, whatever you think. I'm trying to find out what's actually more comfortable for me to do this so I can actually do it on the screen. I'll try this way. So I'm just going to use my pencil here so I know what boundary it's going to be. So again, same as it, just kind of push down a bit more on the edges, and as you go towards the other end, just kind of get lighter, a bit of lighter pressure, and then all of a sudden you see darker shade moving to a lighter shade. Again, you can do something similar. This one was using diagonal shading lines. This was using your side of your pencil. Then if you wanted to practice a bit more straight lines, you can kind of go like this, and again, to make the things a bit lighter, start putting them at slightly bigger distance as you're going along, and you get like nice kind of shade and gradient going on there. So straightforward enough. Next thing we're going to do, we'll look at some kind of freehand oblique and isometric drawings. So again, if I'm going too fast, just pause it and go back and do it. If your drawing isn't looking, if you're not happy with it, just kind of go back, erase it out, and just start again. So the first one we've been drawing lots of squares. We're kind of moving on from drawing straight lines to putting those straight lines into a square shape. So now we're actually going to do it to draw a 3D image. So I'm sure you all remember your oblique and isometric drawings from last semester. Everyone who submitted the drawings did actually very well. So what we'll do is, again, this is all going to be freehand, so no rulers or anything. Now, just in case so don't say no rulers or anything, make sure you use the ruler for the border and a title block, because you're going to be submitting this, so the border and title block has to be there, so that's nice and neat. But the actual drawing itself is all freehand. So again, we'll just draw a square, the front face of a square freehand. So yeah, square isn't exactly square, but it's okay, we get the idea. So remember, an oblique drawing is basically when the front view is actually flat on the horizontal axis, and it's going to go backwards like this. So this one's going to be just, again, freehand straight lines, 1, 2, 3, 4, and then we want to go back a little bit. So it's usually at an angle of 30 degrees, so you have to kind of use your best judgment. So with a bit of practice, you'll be able to kind of figure it out. If you're not sure exactly what 30 degrees is, get your protractor out, have a look at it. Do I have one here handy? Probably do. Yeah, so get your protractor out, and you can kind of roughly see where 30 degrees is, just to kind of get an idea if you're not too sure. So for me, where are we going now? We lined up. So 30 degrees is about going there. So, but again, it doesn't have to be exactly 30 degrees. It's freehand sketching, so it's just kind of communicate your idea. So we're going to go back. Now you want this line, this is all going to be drawn to scale, so we want the line kind of here to be the same length as the horizontal line. And we go back here, and it's a slightly bit off, so we can kind of, I'll just go over that again. That one is just at a slightly different angle, so it kind of stands out a bit more. But enjoy your freehand sketching with a light pencil, you can erase it fairly quickly. Again, to kind of use your muscle memory, you can just kind of trace over the line without actually touching the paper, and then go to this corner here, and you can go across over, and you'll roughly get where we're supposed to be. And we'll just join these lines up. And again, you want to put this line down here, so just hover the pencil over that to get your muscle memory kicked in, and then go back roughly, and then you kind of bring the line down, and then you can join up the dots. So we have a nice freehand oblique drawing. So now, just from looking at this, I see this is kind of, this line is obviously a bit longer than this line here, so what, you know, it's freehand sketch, you can go over it again. So if you were doing this in a darker, in a lighter shade, and it was a little bit off, you can just at the very end go over it in a darker shade, just to make it stand out a lot better, and you can kind of fix any of the rough. But it's only freehand sketch, there's no need to have it absolutely perfect. Now I've been doing this for a while, so don't worry if mine's looking a bit better than yours. It's a bit of practice. It took me about 3 or 4 goes to get this sheet all happy out, so don't worry, you all have to do a bit of practice. So while we're here, actually what we can do, we can actually just then do some different line types. So say this is actually a solid block, we wouldn't be able to see through, but say if we wanted to actually show the lines in the background. So this is where we can show dashed lines, that's our hidden lines. Again, this is all freehand. So we're going to actually just draw a dashed line coming up here. So we want a dashed line, it's going to be the same angle as these lines going backwards. Just use your eye roughly so it's kind of in line with this side. Bring it back like that. And, okay. Line's slightly off, but sure. I won't tell anyone if you don't. So here we have a kind of our dashed lines then, you know. It was a little bit off, but it's fine, you know. For freehand sketching, it doesn't have to be absolutely perfect. As long as it's relatively neat and it can convey the idea what you want to do. Next year, when you start doing concrete labs, you'll be doing concrete technology. You'll be drawing concrete cubes. So, for example, for your lab report, what you could do, you could draw like an oblique cube and then use your pencil here to shade it in. You know, it would just look very good in your lab report if you have to do a little hand sketch for it. I'll just do another one here. This is for practice. I'll just do it a slightly different size. I'll actually even do a rectangle. Just something different. Bottom line's a bit not the best. And if the lines don't join up, just join them up afterwards, and then you can use your eraser just to go over them. Probably good to start with this one at the back, because that'll actually give you a target to go for these two. So here we have our oblique, different type of rectangle. So okay, so and then you know, I'm using a darker pencil. So if you were going over this in a lighter pencil, once you've got your shape and you're happy with the shape, get your dark pencil like your 5B, which I'm actually drawing with. But if you were drawing it when you were drawing it with your lighter shade, just go over it at the end once you're happy with it, and just a bit of a darkened one. Well, again, we'll just make it pop. No need to go over the hidden lines in the dark one, because you want to kind of keep these ones as the standard lines. The hidden lines are supposed to be kind of slightly more recessed. So, okay. What we do next? We'll do an isometric one. So, I'm sure everybody remembers what an isometric drawing is. So it's similar to an oblique, but it's actually slightly rotated. So instead of actually the front face being flat on the horizontal axis, it's actually kind of rotated up like the side axis. So I'll just do number 5 here so we can keep track of where we are. Okay, so when you're doing an isometric one, again, this is probably one where you definitely use a light shaded pencil because it's a little bit more tricky if you're not used to it. So I'm going to draw my horizontal axis, I'm going to draw my vertical axis. So now we've got our base where we're actually going to put our shape. So I'm going to draw a cube. So again, roughly at an angle there. From what I remember, I think it's about 30 degrees, so it's similar to the oblique. So we have our line here. So we have that's our angle. So one line going back that way. The front face is going to be on this side or this side, whichever way you're thinking about it. So we have our one line going up to this. So again, you can use the muscle memory technique. Hover your pencil over the line and just go here and then roughly try and get the same length again. Now this is actually where planning where your drawings go is actually a good thing, because I think I'm going to start crashing into my oblique drawing. Again, it happened to a few people last semester where you were drawing a shape and it kind of went over into the title block. You know, this is where you kind of, if you're using a light shaded pencil, you can do a light rough outline first of all, and you see to make sure it fits first. So it's always good practice. So we'll just continue for the moment. I'll dock myself marks, don't worry, but hopefully you guys will get it right. Now, there we go. It's kind of going underneath this. So yeah, it's roughly about, it looks okay for. So let's go over that again. Again, if you were doing this and it kind of was crashing into your oblique, all you do is kind of just rub it out and start again. But I'm just showing you, doesn't have to be perfect. It has to be relatively neat as you can. And again, if it doesn't look as neat as you think it should, just rub it out and go it again. So now again, gone over our lines and we got a nice little dark one. So I'll do a small one down here so we can actually fit it in properly. Draw my horizontal axis. So I'm going to draw a cube, so I'm going to try and get everything more or less the same. So I want these lines, this line, this line, so everything's going to be drawn exactly the same scale. So instead of just kind of move, I'm actually just twisting my body around so I can actually draw this, get my elbow in a good position for drawing. Straight up, join it up, and then get this line, kind of go over that line with the muscle memory. Oh, and that's immediately wrong. That's okay, that's why we invented erasers for. So and then we can go across. So here we have a, you know, it's not exactly perfect cube, but if, you know, if you're doing a lab report and you have to draw a concrete cube, something like this would be good. Again, we can do kind of horizontal or hidden lines for these. Where are we gonna go? So we'll try this one here first of all. We can't see the back line there, so we'll just kind of judge it by eye. So wanted to line up with these ones, and that's going to be going up there, and going to be the corners obviously somewhere over there. We'll do the same for this one over here. Now this was perfect isometric. They would actually be hidden behind that corner, but it's not, but it's freehand, so I'm not going to lose too much sleep over it. One of the things then actually we can do, once you start drawing shapes like this freehand, we want to actually start adding in dimensions. So if you're doing a quick sketch of a foundation, something for the on-site for builder and everything, and you want to know what the dimension is, you could draw your cube or whatever it is. And again, dimensions are fairly useful when you're actually designing things. You need to know exactly what the size is. So we do this different ones. So if you're doing your orthographic projection, you'd have them coming straight off the side and straight off the bottom. For the isometrics and obliques, it's similar. You just take it off the angle. So it's usually good to kind of go in the axis the line is going. So if I want to actually do dimensions onto this line here, just follow the position of the line angle. So kind of going reversing out a little bit, and I'll just twist it a bit so I can get a straight line, and then we can just go like that so the lines cross a little bit. Put your ticks in, and whatever size it is, when you're putting in dimensions, if you are putting in dimensions, they're the most important thing that need to be clear, because they're there to tell people what size something is. So make sure it's nice and clear. So I'm going to write 50 there, for example. I'm sure I'll just do one in each corner just so we can practice. Bring your line down, get our ticks, and we go 50. So it's similar enough. So if we want to do it here, we'd have another one there, but we don't need to do it. So 2 goes practice there. So straightforward enough. What else we could do? We could do some dimensions. Well, we can try. We'll come back to dimensions in a second. We'll just kind of draw a few other little things. I suppose we were talking earlier on about our hatching and our shading. So we've done these little things here. I don't know when you do AutoCAD, you're probably doing with that already. But in AutoCAD there's actually a hatching feature. So if you're drawing things like concrete, there's actually a concrete hatch, there's a brick hatch, and there's actually usually set kind of hatches you use for different purposes. But again, we can use some of these for sketching. Sometimes in sketching you can use an actual hatch like in AutoCAD, or you can actually just use colour. So if you've got coloured pencils and some of that, you can actually just colour the concrete in grey. But if you only single line or only a single colour pencil like a grey pencil, then you can use either shading or using the kind of hatches that you actually have in AutoCAD. So I'll just bring this up here. So here I'll just draw a little rectangle. So this is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So we'll do 6 over here. So what we do is I'll draw a few rectangles, and then we'll start filling them in for different type of hatches. So again, using your just freehand sketch skills for all the lines. And we'll do 4. If your pencil is not as sharp as it was to start, just pair it. Okay, so not the most perfectly aligned one. So what we're going to do first of all, again, for AutoCAD, I think the hatch that you use for brickwork is actually just, it's not going to be like your fancy brick. Now if you were in a building, you could, if you wanted to be very artistic, you could draw like individual bricks. But usually in AutoCAD, the simple way to do it actually is just to draw diagonal lines. So in your rectangle, just draw diagonal lines. Doesn't matter about spacing, just so it looks roughly something like this. And we'll actually start our practice with text then. So I'm just going to draw a horizontal line, and then in capital letters, brick. So if you've got if you're drawing a drawing and you've got all different type of hatches, you're going to have a little legend on the side saying what all the different hatches actually mean, so the person looking at it knows what to do. So the next one we can do concrete. So again, concrete and AutoCAD has little lines and squares. Obviously with a hand drawing, it makes perfect sense to actually just for concrete to actually just use your pencil, because concrete is grey, so why wouldn't you use your grey pencil? So I'll let you kind of think about whatever way you want to do. I'm just going to use my pencil kind of nice and lightly just to kind of shade it all in a little bit, and then we'll we'll do a hybrid kind of natural shade like this, and then the AutoCAD. So in AutoCAD, if you haven't seen a concrete hatch, it's actually just drawing like a little triangle here, a little triangle there, and then some random lines, random circles. So all these little marks actually just kind of highlight all, are supposed to represent the little stones and the bits of sand that are actually in the concrete. So something like that. And we'll draw a straight line. I'm going to write concrete. Okay, so next one we're going to do is steel. So again, steel is, it's kind of similar to the brick, except there's a bit more lines to it. And again, generally steel would be, you know, grey or silver color. So again, if you wanted to kind of be a bit more artistic, you could draw a very light kind of coloring in of grey there, just using a pencil. But the actual hatch is actually using diagonal lines. So it is generally kind of, instead of having all the lines easily separated, you do 2 diagonal lines close together, leave a gap, 2 lines close together, leave a gap, 2 lines close together, leave a gap, and then you keep doing that the whole way through. So you just draw the lines in 2. So that's what a steel hatch would look like. There we have steel. And the next one we'll do is wood. You know, there's common construction material. So the wood one is actually easy, you don't have to colour it in. If you did a colour, you could get like a very light orange or a brown and kind of use that one as well for a background colour. But if you're just using pencil, you know, kind of a slightly wavy line kind of going diagonally across your material, across the material, is generally how you draw a wood hatch or differentiate wood. So there we go. So, you know, straightforward enough. So that's what our hatches look like freehand. One of the things I noticed last year or last semester when I was correcting all the handouts or all your submissions is the drawings themselves are very good, but the actual method for kind of using text or for writing text was generally, you know, was a bit hit and miss with some people. I know it's kind of tricky because you're generally actually drawing your text or writing your text in slightly unnatural size. What you're doing is usually a little bit bigger than what you're actually used to. If you find that you're struggling with actually just writing a bit bigger than you used to, maybe make it a little bit smaller. So kind of get a blank piece of paper and start to kind of practicing. And because it's when you're writing text on a drawing like this, an engineering drawing, it's generally all letters have to be in capital letters. So have a bit of practice, kind of roughly play with it and see what size it is that you actually find is actually going to be the most comfortable for you to draw. But we're going to practice our text now. How are we going to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So I'm just checking my notes. Okay, so we'll go to number 7. You can just about see number 7. I should write bigger for you, sorry about that. So what we're going to do is, there's actually a sentence that's going to sound a bit ridiculous, but sure, what the reason it's a good sentence is actually it has all the letters of the alphabet in it, so it's kind of it's a good sentence to write for practice. So it's actually, the quick brown fox jumps over the lazy dog. And if you write that out, you get to practice all the letters. So we're going to write that a few times. So again, if you're not too sure about kind of keeping the lines, keeping it straight, even though it's freehand, just for the moment, what you can do is just for the first one, just draw a line, very light shade line there. I'm going to do it over 2 lines. So you can use this as a guideline for your text. So just keep it straight. The more often you practice with the text, eventually you won't have to use these guidelines. You'll just get the hang of it. So, but anyway, we'll try it. So we're going the quick brown fox. Okay. Again, if you need to kind of twist the page a little bit to make it more comfortable, you can. So the trick is to make sure all the text is roughly the same size and make sure the text isn't kind of starting to slant. Oh, nib broken that. That's good enough, it's okay. So we're not looking for calligraphy or anything too fancy. But we don't want it to be, well, it can be nice freehand as long as it's clear and legible. That's the main thing. So the quick brown fox. Jumps over the lazy dog. Okay, so hopefully you can see that, but it's, you know, it's relatively, it's fine. If you submitted something like that, I'd be 100% happy with it. So what we're gonna do now for the next one, we're just gonna just write this another 2 times, but I want to actually just try and experiment kind of writing at different sizes. So that's what I found was the most kind of comfortable. I know in the title block when in the first class I told you to write something at exactly 8 mil and 6 mil and 6 mil. But if you're finding it hard to get it exactly neat at that size, you know, a few little practicings of this, find the size that you're actually comfortable with. So because it's more important for it to be nice and clear and legible and all the letters to be straight, as opposed to being exactly 6 mil but the letters kind of going jumping all over the place and slanting. So, you know, figure out what works for you and then just stick with that one. So I'm going to go this time without the guidelines, and I'm going to see if I can actually just draw, maybe repeat it without the guidelines, maybe a different size, but we'll see. Here we go. Okay, so it's not too bad. It's similar enough to what I did before. I did it a little bit bigger. I think it actually came out a bit better actually. So it wasn't too bad. So I'll try again. We'll just try and repeat it one more time. So try and just repeat it 3 times and try and get it as looking more or less. What I want to do is maybe keep doing this until you get 2 of them that are more or less the exact same. So, but I'll do at least 3 for this exercise. So I'll just do one more. Again, the more you practice, the better you'll get at it. So, and you're going to be doing lots of sketching, I think, for building technology, and then next year you're going to be doing surveying with myself actually out in the field, and you will be doing hand sketches of site plans. So, and there's going to be lots of text on them. So again, you're going to be using these skills a lot. Okay, so that's not too bad. Happy enough for that. Sure, we'll just add a bullet point then if you want to do some of this. So if you're doing multiple lines, so we can kind of differentiate between different type of text. I'll just check my notes. Am I missing anything? No. Okay, so that's what we'll do for this first video here. Oh man, that's about a half an hour video. That's a long video. So if you get this much done today, that's fine. Then next week we'll actually work on a bit more detail. So I'll show you my sketch. These are my notes when I was practicing what we're going to do. So next week we're going to look at maybe drawing things like this. I'm just kind of thinking out loud. So maybe drawing I-beams and kind of blocks and bricks freehand. Again, they look a bit complicated, but all they actually are is these kind of slightly wireframe structures, just then adding in a little bit of detail. So don't worry about it now. I'll go over. There's actually nice little tips and things we can do for figuring that out. So just do this as much today. So again, straight lines at different angles. Draw your freehand squares, adding a bit of shading. Then do some wireframe oblique shapes, and then some wireframe isometrics. Then practice doing some hatching and a bit of text, and then practice your text here. Then fill in your title block. So again, title drawn by, checked by, scale and date. Obviously none of this is the scale, so in the scale you can write in scale, but then just type not to scale. You know, again, this is where you have to practice your handwriting to make sure all that text fits in. But you know, if it doesn't fit in, if it's looking a bit tight, if it's getting squashed towards the end, just get your eraser and rub it out and clean it up. So like, we've no excuse not to submit messy drawings, because you know it's all done in pencil. You can rub it out and do it again. So do your best. So this is what you want to submit it. So once you got all this done, same as before, make sure you go over your lines and your shapes, especially these ones here, and even actually the squares here. So that's one thing that was missing a few times last year. Lots of people were drawing the drawings, but they weren't going over them at the end afterwards with a darker shade pencil to make them stand out. So I'll just go over it exactly so you can kind of see what I'm doing. It also helps, apart from actually just when you're actually looking at drawings yourself face to face, but especially when you're actually going to be scanning, because we're going to be scanning them using the app, having a darker outline along them just actually makes it a lot easier for me to see when I'm actually correcting them. So it just comes up because a lot of times the flash will actually make things a bit brighter, or those apps will actually kind of add a little whitening filter and just make things a bit harder to see. So we'll just go over all the outlines. It's a bit funny, but sure, it's okay. Only freehand. Okay, so we've gone over these. These are kind of drawn. So just go over all your shapes in the dark pencil. So not the hidden lines, obviously. So again, for the darker shade, you want to be drawing with a B pencil. So I've got this this little thing of pencils here. So I'll just see if can you focus in on this. That's a torch. Sorry, turn that off. Okay, so I've actually completely messed things up there. There we go. A bit clearer now anyway. So we see here, so I got starts at 4H here on the left and it goes all the way up to 8B. So the ones on the right, the B's are your darker shades and your H's are the lighter shades. So start off in like a 4H, 2H or an H to draw off with, and then when you're finished at the very end, go over with a darker pencil. So I went over mine with a 5B. So again, do them all initially in one of the H shades, and then go over them at the end then with a 5B. It'll just make them stand out and pop a bit better. So that's what we have to do. So I'll just refocus back in here. So again, once you've all this done, I want you to just fill in the title block and you want to submit it as it is. So again, take your scan, upload it to Brightspace, and then we'll give you some feedback. And then next week we'll do a bit more detailing on drawing other stuff, freehand sketching. So okay, so that's all we're going to do today so far. So work on that, and any questions, just let me know, okay? Thank you.